Hi everybody, welcome to the week in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Today's episode will be called The Road She Ends. This is the 1st of October. It is the 1st October in 4 years that we don't have Marvel Avengers Alliance. It is the first day of not having Marvel Avengers Alliance in 4 years. It's the first October 1st in 4 years that we don't have it. And it's the first day that the week in Marvel Avengers Alliance features Future Fight as a backdrop. The game is over. Marvel Avengers Alliance is, unfortunately, no more. Everybody maybe hoped, probably until that last minute, that perhaps something was going to change. Something would maybe come into it at that 11 hour and 59 minute mark before the death knell tolled, that perhaps we would be able to salvage it. And at least as of right now, that doesn't seem to be happening. So we are left MAA-less for the first time since, long day maintenance and everything. We no longer have the game. And while it is sad, I, to a degree, am not that emotionally affected by it. It's gonna hit me probably as more and more days go by that I'm not signing in and I'm not doing my flight decks. And the thing is, at least for me, because everything was accomplished, there was a definite weaning off period. This isn't cold turkey today. I actually missed a day for the Daily Spinner somewhat recently. I managed to get it back up to full before it ended. But yeah, I accidentally missed a day. And let me tell you, the thought of missing any days in Marvel Avengers Alliance for the last, I would say 2 or 3 years would be crazy. I mean, I have not missed a day of that game since, I was just super casual in it. And certainly not since the Daily Spinner came around. It was even a surprise when it happened. I mean, I didn't even notice that I had missed a day. I was like, what's this extra 1,000 silver? Oh my god, the Daily Spinner reset. So, I'm going to answer some questions that perhaps the community might have now that the game is wrapped up and everything. Okay, number one, how come you're not that affected by it? You produce content for it, and you streamed it for a year straight at the very least, and you did so much for it. Why are you not angry, or why are you not super upset about it? I think mostly because for me, if there is a game that would happen, it would probably be World of Warcraft. That's where a lot of my emotions would be tied to, being a guild master for so many years and a raid leader and forming and losing relationships and forming real life friendships from that game due to its social nature and the ups and downs of being a main tank in a raid guild and leading the raid guild and staffing it and having to make those kinds of decisions all the time. That's probably the game that would affect me emotionally if and when it ended. But also by the same token, my guild hadn't raided in a year until Legion dropped. And now we're raiding again, but we stopped raiding around this time last year because real life had affected some of the key raiders, and then they announced that there would be no new content, which was the opposite of a morale boost. I mean, it was a black hole of morale. And for the first time since Molten Core, my guild was not raiding. We've picked it back up and we're good to go. But even then, that taught me that I could possibly even be weaned off of World of Warcraft and not be that affected by it. I mean, as 2015 rolled out and 2016 rolled in, there was probably multiple days going by where I wouldn't necessarily log into WoW, and maybe I would just to do my garrison stuff and then log out, or just to log in and see what was the time walking week. But I wasn't raiding, and I wasn't like doing heroics, and I wasn't really leveling characters, and so when it comes to Marvel Avengers Alliance, despite the fact that it has been around for 4 years, it pales in comparison to the amount of time and mental facilities that have been applied to World of Warcraft. So that's part of the reason why I'm not like, fuck Disney, fuck Play-Doh. I'm not one of those people, and I'm not one of the people who is crying over the loss of the game. Am I sad about it? Absolutely. I mean, it is as much a part of my daily routine as getting in the shower or having some breakfast or you know, spending time with the cat or feeding the cat around 6, 7 o'clock at night. I mean, it's, especially in PvP seasons, I mean, I watch my PvP scores like a hawk, except for when I'm asleep. Even when I was at work, I was either looking at it and puffing, or I was team viewing back to my PC over here and monitoring it, and I was countering losses and cheering wins, and you know, I haven't dropped an ADA since my first ever legitimately learned ADA, which was the Rocket Raccoon season. And of course, the fakely earned Angel way back in the day. It's gonna be a black hole in there. And, I mean, even when I was doing WoW, like raiding or questing or dungeoning, my laptop over to the side had Marvel Avengers Alliance up, and I was cycling flight decks, and if I had energy, I was running a mission, and, you know, if I had a break in WoW, like I stopped for a second, I would go over and do a fight or two, and Marvel Avengers Alliance, and, like, go back to WoW, or if I was in a raid, and we wiped, and I'm dead, I'm just sitting there waiting for the fight to end, or waiting for a res, I'd be playing Marvel Avengers Alliance. It was both a primary attention grabber and a secondary thing. You know, kind of like watching a movie and knitting at the same time for people who do stuff like that. I mean, sometimes it was the movie, sometimes it was the knitting. And that's been that way for 4 years now. And if you look at the tribute video, the first 2 portions of that tribute video, up until you see Ares and Sabretooth, that was all when I was, like, casual. You see the flight decks were, like, 24 hours. I had 3 allies. They were people I was friends with from my WoW guild and my Nerve clan and everything. And it wasn't until I went to a I Need Allies page and started adding a bunch of allies that the game really took off for me. And it was around the time of that video that you see Ares and Sabretooth in there. And then I wasn't dropping Spec Ops anymore, and I was getting out of gold in PvP, and caring to get out of gold, and not be like, oh, here's a new thing for the game to do. Alright, I'll do some matches. Oh, that sucked, I didn't do well. Oh well. You know, that's when I turned the corner. I think was right around the Rescue Spec Ops or so. That's when I started treating it like World of Warcraft and having it be a dedicated game. And I never looked back from that moment. And I completed every Spec Ops that came around, and I got gear sets, and, you know, there were some gear sets that I didn't complete. The Sticky Situation set, but, and this is not me trying to pad my ego, I didn't care to finish that one. There was some gear along the way that came from the Spec Ops that I didn't get, most notably the Hand of Apocalypse. But I managed to craft all the things that I wanted to along the way, like the Shepherd's Staff. I had the quest for that for a long time, and I finally, like, broke down and got the components and crafted that and got that out of the way at some point. Got the cube, got the mystic, got the cosmic cardinal. So, next question. What are the things that I would miss now that Marvel Avengers Alliance is gone? Well, after a certain point, it was the gold sale every month. I never did the 100, but I definitely did the 50. Was I happy with all of the gold sale items? No. I think those summon ones there kind of fell apart on me a little bit, and I know they got nerfed, but even still, I never liked them that much. But when they were free actions, they were definitely better. And then again, I was fans of some of those items that nobody else was, like the Isosaur Whisper. People hated that thing. I liked the Isosaur Whisper a lot. My only beef was that I wish it was a special functionality item like the Cosmic Cardinal, so that I could run it on defense and not have my agent accidentally use it. And if you remember the Isosaur Whisper, using it had way less effects than if it procced as a counter weapon. That's $50 a month that I now have back in my pocket. That's $50 that is more than I spend on WoW in 3 months of playing it. I mean, it's a decent grocery bill. That's a 2-person dinner in an expensive restaurant. I mean, that's gonna be nice to have that back and not have to quote-unquote worry about it. And before I was doing the gold sales, a lot of what I would do to get gold would be to do their gold offers, like, oh, my mom's birthday's coming up. I'm going to get her a bouquet of flowers from 1-800-Flowers, and I'll do the Marvel tie-in, and I'll get the 60 gold, and my mom will get flowers. Like, that's what I used to do before I was doing the gold sales. And then I kind of realized the way the math is working out is that those partnerships don't really give you a lot of gold over what you would spend to get the gold anyway. You had to adjust the thinking of it. It's not like, I need gold, I'm gonna do a partner thing. It's more like, oh, a birthday's coming up, Christmas is coming up, special occasion. I'll get the stuff through the partner and then get the gold as basically a freebie. And once you started thinking of it that way, it was a little bit easier to swallow, but I mean, I've been doing the gold sale for quite a long time now. And I think when I last looked on the wiki as to the first one that I got, I don't think I skipped one after I finally did my first one. And I mean, just 10 months, that's $500. 12 months, that's $600. That's $600 at least that has been dumped into the game just from the gold sales. Now, did I do it for more than a year in a row? Definitely. So, well more than $600 went in there. What did I do with that money when I got it? Well, not PvP, believe it or not. Sometimes I got PvP armory items, but I was never one of those ones to get, like, 64 girls' best friends and slotted, or, you know, 64 of the 64 gold items, or 36, or whatever. I never did that. I also never bought gold currency ISOs and slotted it on people. Basically, the gold went for the 64 gold item of the Spec Ops set. Sometimes it would go for respins. Sometimes it would go for an ISO that I really, really needed, but I only had one of. I didn't want to keep stealing it from the person who owned it, because generally I was thrifty. If, say, Kurth had an ISO that I wanted to move over to Null, I moved it. I didn't just buy a second one unless I was really forced to. So, you know, most of the times it was just respins when I was getting lazy, and, you know, sometimes components to craft an item if I wanted to, again, if I was lazy and wanted to stop farming for it or something like that. So, that's generally where it went. And over here, I'm leveling Wasp and Ronin. Mostly Ronin for his leadership skills, but, that's what I tended to do with my gold. I never was one of those dump it all into PvP type people. As a matter of fact, in any given season, my armory was mostly the seasons before stuff, with maybe 12 to 16, 18 pieces of like the current stuff. All depends on how much gold was left over from the real stuff. I was not one who ever dropped out of Ada after earning Ada legitimately for the first time. I kept saying that, oh, this is the season where it's not going to happen. Like, maybe in the very beginning of the season, I didn't have a clear idea of the team that I wanted to run. And I felt like, man, this isn't going to do well at the higher levels. But it would always work out. And somewhere along the line, an idea would happen that would allow me to handle the whole rest of the season. Like Team Suicide and how effective that was. And so, what were my favorite teams in the history of me doing PvP? My number one team had to have been Molly and Hafe. That is the one that I dislike having lost that team the most. Molly and Heroic Age Iron Fist. You saw the results of that team in the tribute video. You saw Molly's decimation of people, even under today's meta standards. I mean, she would double and triple their hit points in damage done. When the stamina nerf came into place, she wasn't useful anymore. Prior to that, Molly could absolutely run the table. And there was not much that could really stop her. Other than maybe an infiltrator who had combat reflexes up and had been pissed off by my tactical agent. Yeah, that would be a little bit of an issue. But for the most part, other than maybe being mind controlled by Enchantress or something, I love that team. And when Molly took the stamina nerf, I very quickly gravitated over to the alternate costume of Spider Tits. And that was another fun one for a while. And then they nerfed her, and I wound up going to Elsa. But, number one team, Molly and Hafe. Number two team probably would go to X-Force Archangel and X-Force Psylocke, and then number three would come back to Hafe and ASG. But X-Force Archangel and X-Force Psylocke were a team that I ran for a while and liked them a lot, and then they kind of disappeared when I favored Molly. But then the meta shifted so much that bringing them back was incredibly viable. And it was unique. It was a breath of fresh air. Nobody was trying to run that team. And I actually kind of paved the way for a lot of people to see them in my videos and on my stream and go, yeah, actually, I kind of like this team. I'm going to try this. And in their first iteration, you can actually see it in the tribute video, it was like Neuropurge, the Mystic, the Cube, and the Mark of the Brotherhood. And that was to give them rally and morale boost. And that was only when it was like 4 item slots for the agent. Their second iteration, when they came back, I think it was the Lantern, the Weather Control Device, the Scroll of Runamaroth, and I don't remember what else my agent was running there at that point. I don't think it was the Cube, but possibly. I like the fact that I was able to find those two in the crowd in 2 very different times of the game. And I like their effectiveness. I like the AoE Nanoplague because it ruins everything. The Brutal Strike on 2 people's level 9s. Psylocke being stealthy, and then Archangel being stealthy and not having to worry about his very impressive skills being tanked, and you didn't have to worry about the lunacy for a good chunk of that over there. You just had to worry about Heimdall or the satellite support. So those were probably my 2 favorite teams. And then third, like I said, would be Hafe and Spider Tits. Then Hafe and Elsa. But Magic Warding was really bugging the shit out of Elsa. Especially if it was the Hexenjäger, because then even if you kill the agent, the Hexenjäger's Magic Warding stayed. I'm trying to think of what other teams I've run. Pesty and Captain Steve Rogers was way more fun than people would think it was. I ran Tactician Captain Steve Rogers, not the scrapper version. And I ran Tactical Pesty, and I ran most of the Demon set there. And they were a lot of fun. On defense around that time, I was running like the Thorny and pieces of the Demon set. And I was being kind of an ass. I was hiding my Demon set behind the Thorny, because the Thorny provides you with all those debuffs anyway. And people would see that in my hand, and they didn't necessarily know there were other pieces of the Demon set around. That got screwed when we took the quick action nerf. You know, because prior to that, you could do as many quick actions as you wanted in a turn. Which leads me to my next question. What nerfs or buffs in the game have you disliked the most or absolutely hated? The quick action one. I was never one to complain about how many things somebody does because they have a bunch of quick actions. To me, that was the nature of the beast. I considered it part of the game, and I thought there was nothing wrong with having a signpost and a weather control device and a snappy service cube. I mean, so what? It was done because it allowed you to intelligently set your agent up rather than have him run around and do stupid things like bringing in the Deb for its usefulness and then having the agent spam the Deb. And you know how much I hated that in the last year. I thought that nerf was bullshit. I thought it didn't need to be that way. I'm glad they came around and introduced free actions to kind of cover it, but I still thought that one was shit. Heroic Age Iron Fist, I cry for what happened to him. I think they took such a phenomenal and smart hero and just chucked him out in the dumpster out back of the Chinese restaurant. I mean, it's so sad what happened to him. And I don't think he needed it done. If you were the type of person who managed to bait out a 9-6 and you're like, oh, the whole team's healed, you were doing it wrong. And then look at, you know what? Where is your god now when you see the end of PvP at the end of the game with Faiza and Cloak and Dagger and their gigantic reset switches? And even the Emma Colossus period where Colossus's healing was so tough to get through unless you got Despair or the Ionic Devour and stuff like that. People thought Hafe was tough to deal with. Look at what we were faced to deal with at the end of the game. It almost pales in comparison because once you combine Cloak and Dagger, there's the heals, then you get Faiza, who was the heals and the debuff immunity. Hafe is just sitting there he's just sitting there at home in his easy chair with a robe on, watching TV with a card table next to him with a bunch of TV dinners, being a fat pig going, and they complained about me. Utterly stupid. And you could sit there and say, well, Napalm, Hafe was like the package. What you're describing is running two heroes to accomplish what Hafe did. Yeah, but the heal was not as big as Cloak and Dagger, and Triage was way more than Hafe, other than the fact that it was removable. But the fact that it went through even if Pesty was out there, that's what makes it way stronger than what Hafe ever did. And you might say, well, with Hafe, it's more than just a support. He was a face wrecker too, and the combo breaker, and blah blah blah. Yeah, but there were still ways of dealing with it. The Neuro Purge was one of the best ways of dealing with Hafe when he was all about the offense. Wasp was capped out. I don't think he needed to be nerfed so badly, and I think that was noobs and whiners who got him wrecked. Amazing Spider-Girl, there's another one that I wish was never nerfed so much. She was single target, yeah, she could obliterate somebody, but she needed a little bit of setup for it. She was single target, you know, they changed her once, and then all of a sudden tacticians were an issue for her. I, I don't think it needed to be so bad for her. I hate what Stamina did to Molly. I might still be using Hafe and Molly to this day if things hadn't changed so much over there. Um, I think those are some of the biggest changes that happened to heroes that I disliked. Meanwhile, you know, Kurth is double draining off of Scudam because of the interaction with the Unstunnable. They let an entire season go by of Grit and Scudam before it got fixed. Yet, it seemed like out of left field, Hafe got nerfed. And ASG was nerfed so quickly. Molly was allowed to exist for so long. It's like, if you were going to do something that would affect her, like, it should have been done right from the beginning. Because she was so powerful. Null went through his changes, and he was good, and he was bad, and he was out of the meta, and then he was rampaging back in the meta, and... I would have liked to have seen something knock Kurth down a few pegs. Did I use her on defense? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wanted some sort of stability on my defense, you know? Nothing like having to use your offense to fight everything back every single day. It's nice to put somebody in the meta who can at least stabilize you a little bit. But Kurth, I wish, had some more counters way earlier than they had ever arrived. No, I was okay with dealing with him and Quicksilver and Rescue and Omega back in the day, and the Groot Guardian teams and how much of a bastard that was, and the Warrior 3 teams and that popular meta, and the Nightcrawler Mystic Shroud era, and then Pesty and Red Hulk and Enchantress. Kurth, I wish, was able to get knocked down a little bit of a peg or two over there. And White Tiger probably would have been, or anybody immune to her runes affect her, because she sits there and tries to spam the runes much the same way Magneto tries to magnetize your group if you are immune to it. The only thing is, for Kurth it's active, and for him it was passive, but... it's gone. It's out of our lives, and we will be talking about it for a while. I would say it will become a conversation piece probably until about Thanksgiving. Halloween, I think a lot of it will drop off by Halloween, but I think by Thanksgiving, we probably just really will not be talking about it anymore. What's a good replacement? A Marvel Future Fight is a pretty decent replacement. I mean, it doesn't quite have the synergy between heroes that Marvel Avengers Alliance did, because they're not all out on the field at the same time. But there is definitely synergy here. I mean, Ronan is a good example of that. Ronan's leadership is great for lots of other team-ups for him, and this game is very complex. When I'm thinking about the noob to pro curve in these games, Marvel Avengers Alliance 1, it was very steep. Marvel Future Fight, it's very steep. Marvel Avengers Alliance 2, nowhere near as steep as these two. I mean, it was there. It took a while to get used to really what it was like to get a hero set up properly, and what do they prefer, speed or evasion, or he's really good with hit point, like all that kind of stuff. It took a while, but not MAA and not MFF. And Contest of Champions is basically Street Fighter. I don't think there's anything to intelligently learn in that game. Marvel Heroes, it's all about gearing that individual hero and going through their talent tree. So I don't necessarily think that is a high learning curve either. I don't know. I think Iron Maiden Legacy of the Beast, which I'll be doing some videos on that. That one's a lot of fun, and there is, you know, you've got 3 heroes out on the field at the same time, and there is synergy between those. nothing can beat getting everybody tied together through the agent, though. And I think the only thing that comes close to that is collectible card games. Hearthstone and Magic. And maybe this Elder Scrolls Online card game. And maybe Gwent from The Witcher when that comes out. And there's even going to be a Final Fantasy physical card collection game going on soon. It's going to be hitting the States in the fall. And I believe it was coming over from Japan after 3 or 4 years or something like that. So, card games are the ones that most strike me as being as intelligent as Marvel Avengers Alliance 1. But then you kind of lack the action. Other games, of course, give you that Pokemon gotta catch 'em all kind of vibe. But then they don't give you the real chess match mentality of Marvel Avengers Alliance 1. So, I don't know. I don't know that we will ever see a perfect replacement for the game. It was very unique. There's a company on Facebook called Sharp Bits that's trying to do something similar, but their mock-up had a lot of bad English in it, and I don't know. I don't have that much faith in that one. Hopefully they'll do it well, but in reality, I mean, not even Marvel Avengers Alliance 2 could have replaced Marvel Avengers Alliance 1. If 1 died but 2 was still around, I would be playing it. I'd probably be streaming it, especially during PvP seasons. I would try to fake like it's MAA1, but I don't think I could do that. And I don't know if any of these other games, if I could just consistently do videos on it the way I did 1, and I mean, maybe weekly and everything like that. I mean, I could sit here and do a video right now on Marvel Future Fight and talk about the uniform sale, but then I do that video once and it goes away. So we'll see. Just, you know, stay subscribed to the channel, stay tuned, and we'll see what we all land on. And for the people who are upset about Marvel Avengers Alliance 1, I give you a virtual hug. I'll say I'm sorry. And I'm sorry too, which I am. But we'll get there. We'll live. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video.